Hello everybody, I'm Ollie.
And I'm Jess.
And we're judging nerd culture. So today we're going to talk about a pretty great Netflix show that came out just a few weeks ago. And I like it.
It's very good, yeah. I was very surprised about the actual plot. Like, the trailers seemed to be just like your usual teenager with superpowers, I guess, you know? Like, there's a lot of them.
No, there are, especially nowadays, now that, like
Chronicle and all that,
mm-hmm.
yeah.
So I understand how you feel, like, when you saw the trailers, like, oh, she got powers, it's gonna get kooky.
Yeah, it's gonna be a superhero thing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. There was zero superhero or supervillain things. There's no, like...
Yeah, it's honestly just a teen drama, except sometimes things explode.
Yeah.
So we're obviously talking about I'm Not Okay With This, which is...
that's the title.
Yeah. It's a bad title. I want to say that. I don't like the title. I constantly forget what it actually is. But the show itself, splendid.
Yes. So I know it has a very Stranger Things vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So I was looking up to see if the creators maybe also worked on Stranger Things.
If there's any connection there.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
Are they gonna
look like it?
Are they gonna start doing a Stranger Things universe? Because that'd be pretty wild.
But there are a lot of oh, never mind. It's a different connection. Never mind.
So here's the thing that got me when I first started watching this. No idea what era it is. Like, at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like it's probably at least 2017, 2018. Like, a lot of the stuff looks old, but that's what it looks like in an old town. Or a small town. I've lived in multiple little small towns, and it looked like that.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know, with the way some of them were dressing and the way their people were, I don't know, interacting and acting in general, I was like, is this the 90s? Like, what the hell is this?
Have you been to a small town for longer than, like, a couple hours? Because,
no.
people act like it's the 1800s.
I mean, I get it. That might be a thing some places. I'm just saying, that was definitely a thing when I was first watching. Just, like, an uncertainty about, like, alright, this looks like, first scene, this looks like the 90s. Mm-hmm. Then, oh, that's a smartphone. That's an iPhone.
Yeah.
2019, maybe. I don't know. It just flip-flopped so hard and it was hard to tell. But I feel like, despite whatever era it is set in directly, like whatever it actually is, like, this 2017 in this show, it has a very specifically 90s, 2000s feel.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of the style, because in long story short, it's a very queer story about someone, like, coming to terms with that in a more old school fashion, where it's a little less, I don't know, I've seen a lot of newer media where deciding for yourself whether you're whatever sexual orientation is less of a I don't know what I'm doing or feeling, and more of a trying to get the world to accept it. And this one was a little older style, where it was more, the main character was trying to figure out what her identity even was, and it was focused more internally, which is kind of an older thematic styling, I think.
Yeah.
At least there's no contention. So I get the feeling that was probably intentional. And I liked it a lot. I liked the feel of it. Very nostalgic, even though, you know, I was 7 in the 90s for 1 year.
Yeah, but coming back to what you were saying about how she felt about coming out, when you're in a small town, there's not most small towns. Some are getting better or whatever, but there's not a lot of diverse ways of thinking, I guess. I guess that's how you would say it.
That makes sense.
There's not that many people, and if there's only like 1 or 2 churches, they're gonna preach the same things. Mm-hmm. Or even if you don't go to church, you're still gonna be around those people who have those ideals and stuff. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like in smaller towns, the subcultures, there's just less of them.
Yeah, and so there's just the one culture of that small town, and if you in any way are maybe a little different, you feel maybe afraid that the other people in this tiny little town of like 200 or less, they're going to ostracize you and make you feel like you don't belong there, but like that's her home. So maybe she was just scared of she was scared of losing her friend. And also, what does that mean? Like, how does she feel about that?
Yeah. No, like, that makes a lot of sense, that the small town aspect of it is such an important part of the story, of this, like, I'm in such a small community, if I do or say anything, it changes everything around me. Mm-hmm. Like, that's definitely huge. I've never lived in a small town. I lived in suburbia for most of my life.
Yes, our growing up experiences are very different.
Drastically so.
You've lived in 2 places, maybe? 3 if you count Cuba. And
it was 3.5 years.
Yeah. And all suburbs. Even Cuba was kind of like a suburb.
It was like an urban zone that I was living in.
Well, all the houses were very close together. You showed me the house.
Yeah, that's urban.
Yeah. Suburban, urban, they're the same. People are very close together, is what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, I understand.
Everybody's very close together, and there's a lot of people.
There is a lot of people.
I moved many, many, many times. I've lived in Montana, and I've lived all over Michigan, and all in tiny, small towns until I moved out on my own, and then I got to go to a urban area.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine the difference that we've actually experienced in terms of like which cultures that we've been drawn to, because in the end we both have gone towards the same I'm gonna say moral stances on many things.
Well, when I lived in Montana, this is gonna sound weird, but it was when Katy Perry was first getting popular.
Oh, so I Kissed a Girl and I Liked It came out.
And we got that song on, I don't even think we had cable, it was just some satellite thing. But we were flipping through the channels and Katy Perry came on, and it was the music video. And we were like the only people in the whole town who had listened and like who knew who Katy Perry was. And we only knew her by the one song. Everything else was a mystery. All the kids there, when I went, this was like 5th grade, hardly swore. They were very polite. It was very strange. I was in a different dimension. It was weird. It felt like everything was just a little bit behind from when I lived in Michigan. Then we moved back to Michigan, and everything was fine. The kids were swearing and beating each other up, and
as they should.
Yeah, Katy Perry was rampant.
Oh yeah, as she should be. Have been at least.
Hello, welcome back. Some technical errors, but we fixed it, so here we are again.
Yeah, and we were talking just before everything went black. That you had experienced a multitude of small towns.
Yes.
And they all have a bit of their own, like...
They were all very similar. The one in Montana was more, like, out of time. Yeah. Like, there was horses just wandering around. Like, this might sound like a wonderful dream. And it was pretty awesome for a couple months. Then we moved, but it was... I don't know. Everything seemed, like I said, a little bit behind bigger cities.
A little displaced.
Yes. And then back in Michigan, the small town that I lived in, the people were, I don't know, a different type of small town. Like, Montana was, like, cowboys and ranch hands and whatever that
cowboys
Western
and
life,
aliens.
you know? And Michigan was like, oh, nothing else to do but, you know, smoke weed and
go mudding.
Go mudding, yeah.
Well, you're not a mud gal?
No.
Me neither. I'm definitely not a mud gal.
I don't see the point in it. Let us know if you see the point in going mudding, but I don't see the point in it.
So, obviously, we haven't really talked about what the plot of the story is. Just to be clear, it's a coming of age, coming to terms with yourself, discovering yourself and your sexuality and all these other things. Mm-hmm. And all of that is shown in the metaphor of her developing her powers.
Yeah.
And all that. I mean, developing friendships and things. And throughout the show, she is dealing with the main character is dealing with a lot of depression issues due to having lost her father and potentially losing her friend because of just life, the way people grow away from each other, finding other romantic inclinations and all sorts of things. And it was just such a transitionary period for this character. Like, this entire show is about her being on that line of, all right, this was what's life before, and in a minute, I'm going to be this, or I'm going to be something else. And I don't know what I'm going to be. And she has to make that choice. She has to become something. Mm-hmm. And this show is just about following her as she sort of makes decisions along the way that is going to end up leading her to become the next person she's going to be. And obviously none of those choices are made on purpose on her part. Like, I'm going to be this person. It's just, here's an encounter. Oh, I'm doing this now. And that's going to slowly make her into whatever she's going to be. And it's a lot of fun. I think as far as even without the superpowers or any of that, I think it's a fun coming of age slice of life drama.
Yeah, without the powers, it'd be just more like an angsty AMC show or something.
Yeah. But I think the characters are done so well. Like, I really resonated with all of the characters so well that,
I don't know if I resonate with Sydney, with the main character, Sydney.
Yep.
She's played by Sophia Lillis.
Mm-hmm.
She also plays, I don't remember her name, but she plays the girl in It. Mm-hmm. The young girl. But I don't think I resonate with her too much because she's not a bad character, but she's so, like, edgy and, like, oh, I am not like other people. I just have the one friend. And, like, there's nothing wrong with her character. It's actually a really good character. But I just didn't relate to it. Mm-hmm. I really liked Stanley.
Oh, Stanley's a beaut.
Is played by Wyatt Olaf, not Olaf.
Count Olaf or Snowman Olaf?
But he also plays in It, which I think his name is Stanley in that as well, which is...
Same universe, same character.
Pretty great. But I resonate with him not because of what happens at home, but just with him, he just wants to have fun, and the first scene is him introducing himself to her, and he walked with her down the street barefoot, and she's like, why aren't you wearing shoes? That's weird. And he's like, why not? What? Why wear shoes? It's fine. And, like, I don't know. I immediately liked him because I also do not like to wear shoes. But he's also really fun. And he has, like, a cool aesthetic. And, I don't know, he's a drug dealer, but he's cool.
He's cool. No, I understand. Stanley is, without a doubt, one of the most lovable characters.
Mm-hmm. I was so scared. I was so scared at the end. But I don't want to give any spoilers too much, so...
Yeah, so Stanley and Sydney are just hard pals throughout this entire show.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think somewhere in episode 1, they chit-chat, and it's like, oh, is he going to be kind of creepy towards her? And it's just like, nope, they're just going to be bros and have a good time and love each other. Yeah. And they do have a romantic encounter, which adds a little bit of stress here and there. But in the end, it just comes out, okay, it's fine.
Mm-hmm. And I like how her relationship with him it comes on the heels of her friend, Dina, of her kind of getting in with the cool kids. Like, she starts dating one of the football players and wearing his Letterman jacket and going to the
fancy parties.
Spirit thing.
Oh, Spirit Week events.
Yeah. I don't remember. Anyway, whatever. I didn't go to high school. I did, just not very much.
Good clarification.
Yeah, just to be clear.
I like that.
I did graduate.
I like that as you were sipping your tea, you like startled, like, I did go.
As you can tell if you've listened to any of our episodes. But I liked that Sydney felt like she was being replaced by this guy, and he was a trash person. But she tried to, for the sake of Dina and still being friends with her, tried to be like, okay, whatever, if Dina's happy, I will try to be happy for her. And then in comes Stanley, and he doesn't fill that space, but he makes her feel better again. Like, she's not so sad anymore. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, the scene where they're in the, oh my god, I need caffeine or something. The scene where they're in the grocery store, mm-hmm. and they're just laughing and having fun. That really made me happy for her and for him, because he didn't seem to have any friends.
Yeah, he's got his own issues at home. But no, their relationship is lovely. And it is the glue of this entire show. It's the development of their relationship and how her developing this powerful friendship lets her sort of realign her relationship with other people, specifically Dina. And, she tells him about her superpowers eventually after he finds out. She's very cagey. If there's one thing I didn't like about her as a character, is that she was very standoffish.
Yeah, well, she has her issues. She doesn't like to talk about things. Which is understandable because of how her mom treats her.
Yeah.
The way her mother treats her, you can definitely tell nobody wants to talk about anything. Everybody in the house is just very closed up. And her mom is, at one point, basically tells her, like, nobody cares about you. Mm-hmm. And, like, okay, well, if nobody cares about me, why do I need to tell them my problems? Because they're not going to care.
Yeah, well, I don't remember the line, but I just remember there was a scene where they were...
On the couch.
On the couch, yeah. This is what you were talking about. Mm-hmm. And Sydney brings up something to her mom, like, tries to connect with her mom, like, Mom, I feel this way. And her mom's just like, yep.
Yeah.
Like
that's how you are. Oh my god. Excuse me.
Yeah, it was rough.
Mm-hmm. Not great.
Not great.
And then she has her little brother Liam, who's just
he's a sweet
sunshine.
Boy.
He's a little biscuit. He really looks like Chloe Grace Moretz, like so much. And I looked him up while we were watching the show. No relation, but I couldn't unsee it. This little boy looks exactly like Hit Girl, and I just couldn't.
Maybe he'll grow up to be her sidekick.
Maybe. That'd be kind of cool.
That'd be fun.
Crossover.
But the show continues on with her slowly becoming a little more paranoid and scared and nervous mm-hmm. and anxious and depressed about a lot of things. Yeah,
she starts to think somebody's following her, and the powers that she gets seem to be like mind powers, kind of.
Yeah, like telekinetic-y.
Yeah, she can make things explode. She can, like, if she gets really angry, there's one scene where she gets really angry, and she screams, and, like, all of this anger and energy just comes out in waves and breaks the trees around her and everything. So it's a very, like, mind power. Mind waves or something.
Mm-hmm. Psychic forces. Mm-hmm. It's nice. It doesn't have too much of a visual style to it. Mm-hmm. It focuses a lot more instead of like look at this visual gimmick for the power, and just gives like a visual distortion of the area, and focuses more on how she looks as the power starts kicking in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as you see the, like, discomfort in her rise, as you see the area around her sort of start to move or shake or do whatever. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That they're just like, we don't care what the powers look like.
It's kind of like a panic attack.
Yeah.
I think they kind of hinted at that in the grocery store scene when she starts to panic because she doesn't have enough money to buy the groceries her mom wanted her to get. And Stanley offers to pay for it, but she feels really bad, and she just wants to be done with it. She just wants to leave because it's too embarrassing. And she goes to put the thing back, and the shelves behind her, everything just falls off. Everything explodes. And she just runs out, and Stanley comes up to her and is like, "Oh, panic attack. Oh, yeah." And I feel like I've never had a panic attack, thankfully. I've been very anxious and, like, shaky and, like, sweaty and stuff, but I've never had, like, a full-on panic attack. But the way the environment shakes around her when she starts to feel uncomfortable and anxious and have all those negative feelings, I feel like in real life, for people who do have panic attacks, maybe it feels the same way. Like, it feels like their whole world is, like, rocking and, like, things are not right around them.
Yes, actually, because I have had a couple of panic attacks here and there. Even went to the doctor's one time, the emergency room, because I was like, I'm having a heart attack or something. I am dying out of a surprise panic attack that I experienced. And I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I do, like what you were just saying about, like, the shaking and the trembling and that sort of, like, held in force. I 100% agree with that. When the few times I've had a panic attack or something resembling it, it's felt like my bones were shaking inside my body. They were trembling. So that being the visual representation for her anxiety and the trembling of the world itself, beautiful. I liked it a lot. It felt accurate.
Mm-hmm.
I
liked all the characters, and I was surprised that I liked Sydney, because a lot of times I'll watch a show or read a book, and the main character is always just kind of like, oh, okay. Like, you're a little full of themselves because, oh, they're the one to fulfill the prophecy. They're the hero. They're the one destined to do this. Or they're the one who's having all the trouble and nobody understands. And all of that nonsense that I'm sure you guys know.
Yeah.
But I liked her. She had a lot of different layers to her. And, like, she wasn't angry in a stereotypical teenage movie way. Like, she had reasons to be angry. Oh, yeah, it wasn't just hormones.
Hormones.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could see the root of her issues and understand how they spread. That's why I resonated with her. Mm-hmm. Like, again, I thought that her standoffishness was the thing that bothered me, because I'm very much if I'm feeling something or if someone's feeling something, I want to reach out, I want to talk, I want to communicate.
No. I resonate in that aspect with her, where I'm feeling very upset or depressed. I don't want anyone around me.
I want to be smothered. But that's not the point. The point is, like, that might have pushed me away, but the fact that I could see, like, the root of her anxiety, that resonated with me. Being able to be like, yeah, no, this makes sense. In the next scene, she's gonna freak out. I know she's gonna freak out, and it's okay that I know that ahead of time. It's not like, I'm gonna guess what's gonna happen. It's, I know what's gonna happen because this is realistic. This is a person's emotions, and we're seeing them be impacted by all these events. And that was awesome.
Yeah. It's basically a show about depression and anxiety, and throw in some superpowers to represent that. Yeah. Represent the explosion of not being able to control your emotions, or this dark man who follows her around, like, halfway through the series. She gets really paranoid, and he's like a shadowy figure who can just, like, disappear into vapor, and he's kind of representative of her depression, how it's keeps getting closer and stronger.
He's the literal specter of depression. Which, that's funny. Sad, but kind of funny.
Yeah. And I know that you caught on pretty early in the series that, like, oh, this show's about about depression and all that stuff.
Well,
and, like post-traumatic stuff because of her dad. But I was like, oh, this is a fun, like, it's sad, but this is a fun new Netflix show about powers and, like, this angsty girl. Oh, now I get what the metaphor is.
Well, to be fair, like you mentioned, you haven't experienced as much of that particular thing that I have. So when I saw, like, her reaction to things, when I saw, like, the visualization of her powers and that sort of trembling and the shaking of things and the explosive nature of it, I was like, oh, I do that in my soul. So I understood it a little better. It caught on easier. And I think that says volumes about how well their sort of allusion to those issues goes by, making it about that, making it about her powers and all this, but by making it about her powers, it's about these anxieties, it's about these issues that people don't really talk about. Because, like, a lot of times things can be pretty heavy-handed. And I think being heavy-handed with your metaphors or whatever is great. Sometimes don't even make it a metaphor. Just capitalism is bad. Fuck you. Done.
Yeah, but you love your metaphors.
I do love my metaphors. What I'm saying is, like, sometimes it's a little too heavy, and that's fine in some cases. But when you do it really well, and it's like, you can have an entire story where even the metaphor sort of twists and changes and becomes muddled. It can still make almost perfect sense despite whatever weird thing is happening, whatever personification is occurring. Like, depression being personified in this person who's showing up randomly. Like, that could lead to something that maybe feels off, but in the end, like, having depression as, like, someone who tells you what to do or who scares you, that's meaningful. That means something. That's interesting. And I think they're doing a great job, where you can have an entire show about whatever, and it's still also about these things. And I like it. I'm excited for season 2. That's for fucking sure. Wanted to mention that, we've talked a lot about a few things here and there, and we've dropped maybe a couple light spoilers, it's about depression. Go figure. But I just, quick spoiler notice, the next few things I'm going to mention are pretty darn like, oh, this is the thing that's going to happen at the end, this is the thing that's going to happen at the end. So if you don't want to listen to this section, it was a good show. 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, you should watch it. But if you don't mind listening to spoilers, the ending of this show made me really excited for season 2. Because at the end of it, the Spectre guy...
You're just hopping right in.
Yeah, sorry.
I didn't know you were gonna...
Oh, no. Do you want to talk about something else first?
No, it's fine. I just didn't know you were gonna hop right into the end.
Well, the ending is what excited me most. Like, there's the stuff that happened right before the end, and that excited me, but for different reasons. That was just really interesting. But this ending, I don't know, it just makes me feel like the next season is gonna be some wild shit. And I'm in for it. Because, like I said, spoiler or whatnot, whatever. At the end of the show, after a whole lot of crazy happens and shit has hit the fan thoroughly, she runs away to, try and get some peace and quiet and be by herself, and this dude shows up, the Spectre of depression, basically, catches up to her. And she's been sort of running away from this guy, sort of, in fear of this person, sort of understanding that maybe he wasn't real, maybe it's a thing that she got from her dad, who killed himself, and we find out because of his depression, which is also directly a metaphor for whatever powers he had. But the guy catches up with her, and at the end, instead of, attacking her or starting any sort of, like, cool epic fight scene, she comes down and asks, should I be scared? Like, what's going on? And he responds, no, but they should. Everyone else should be. And the idea of having the superpower coach, the Yoda to whoever she is, be this metaphor for depression itself, That's going to be really cool. And I'm excited to see what that leads her towards in season 2. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing I got most excited about.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't really... I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities. I don't think if he is any sort of evil, I don't think she will do anything evil, because she does care about everyone in the town. Not everyone in the town. But she doesn't want to hurt anybody physically. And this guy, even though he seems menacing, I think maybe he might be... I don't know. I'm hoping that he's not as dark as he seems with his whole just being a shadow figure, telling her that other people should be afraid of them. Mm-hmm. But possibly, I don't know, maybe she's going to use her depression in a more violent, angry way. Like maybe she's going to express it more violently now, or more like erratically, because she doesn't know how to control it. I don't know.
Maybe she'll lash out more. I like what you mentioned. The thing, like maybe he's not going to be as menacing.
Yeah, like they should be scared of you because you have these powers. But if we work together, we can find some sort of control over this thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's going to be fun. I love any let's learn to use your power montage. Love it. But also the idea of, jumping back into the metaphor zone, mm-hmm. If this character, which does seem to represent depression throughout the show so far, if their role in season 2 is primarily to be, I don't know, sort of a guiding figure, but not particularly menacing. Mm-hmm. Not good. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't think he's going to be a good role model. But the idea that he might not be menacing either, I actually am really interested in that. The idea of showing off the character representative of depression as just sort of a neutral character. Like, they're there to impact you, not specifically to ruin you. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's an interesting way to look at depression. Like, it's not this purposely malignant, aggressive force. It's just something that for some people is inside you, and it's there, and it'll alter and control, and it'll alter and influence some of your actions. But overall, it's not like, it doesn't have malicious intent. It has no intent. Mm-hmm. That would be interesting to see if they can show that in this character. And I mean, you were just spitting out some stuff, and that seemed to be a direction that is pretty natural. So that'd be kind of fun. That'd be neat.
That would be cool.
Alright, so we are getting close to the end. Top 3. Top 3 scenes?
Top 3 scenes. I really enjoyed the scene where she explodes. Where she runs away from the party because she gets really angry or anxious, uncomfortable about what happens there. And she runs out in the rain, runs into the woods, and she's alone. She can't take it anymore. She needs to let go of these feelings, this anger, and she screams, and all of these waves of energy, I guess, come out. This force explodes from her, and all of the trees around her, break and tip over, and Stanley, a car is passing by. We don't know if it's Stanley or not. It's Stanley. A car passes by, and he swerves because there's a girl on the road. She runs across the road, and he swerves. And you see in a different scene that it is Stanley in the car. But I really like this scene because it was the first time that it's like somebody has seen her use her powers, and because it was Stanley, I was worried that he was hurt, that a tree had fallen on him or the car or something. But I was also really excited that it was Stanley because I loved the idea of him being the first one that saw her powers, because they became super best friends, and he just seemed like the type of person who would want to talk about it and not like, oh my god, I'm scared of you now, you know, like, that's super cool, like, I want to figure this out with you. And he was.
Yeah.
He was.
He was gung ho. No, that scene was pretty good. Especially since, like, it was that one scene happened across 2 episodes from a couple of different perspectives, like 2 or 3 different perspectives. And at the end, you're, like, the entire time, each perspective, it made it seem like, is Stanley dead? Stanley's dead. Oh my fucking god, Stanley's gonna die. And then he's not. And it's fine. It's, like, such a relief.
Yeah. I didn't say this earlier, but Stanley is, throughout the series, he's kind of like not like the therapist or anything, but like the friend who is like, hey, if you ever need anything, like, I'm here, talk to me, like, you can trust me, and whatever you tell me, like, that's okay, it's alright if you're depressed, it's okay if you're anxious, or, like, having a panic attack, like, I'm here to help you through it. And I don't know, I really liked him.
Yeah, I know. No, he's a lovely character, and, like, he's clearly smitten with her.
Yeah.
And, like, there's a little romantic tension, but at the end, she's like, no, I don't like you, I'm sorry, I like someone else. And, like, there's a brief moment of, like, alright, I'm very jealous, and I'm very upset, but, like, that's fine. Yeah,
but I'm still gonna help you, because I'm not...
Yeah, like,
I'm not a jerk.
I also just like you as a human being and wanna, like, hang
I'm not
out.
a nice guy.
I'm a nice guy.
Yeah.
I'm a non-air quoted nice guy.
Yes.
So yeah, that was a good scene. I'm not sure if you're going to put this on your top 3 or not, but another explosion that was pretty good. One of the very last scenes is she's at a dance. It's, you know...
This is the last episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we gave a spoiler warning.
Yeah.
Another spoiler warning. She's at a dance. She's there with Stanley and her other friend, and there's, like, some romantic tension. Dina.
Dinah.
There's some romantic tension with Dinah, and, like, it's the
Dina!
What's wrong with me? It's a romantic tension with Dina, and it's very exciting. And then dude, bro, jock fuck shows up and just starts outing her as a gay.
Yeah.
It's very uncomfortable, and she starts to shake and feel scared, and whoops.
And he punches Stanley, because Stanley's like, leave her alone! And just, Stanley he's so tiny.
Lovely. Not a fighter.
No.
So he gets rocked, and immediately she starts freaking out, and he keeps pushing and talking and outing her and all this stuff, hurting her friend, and then his head explodes because he just went too far.
It's a good episode, but you know, right when it happens, like, oh man.
Oh yeah, she's upset. It's bad.
She's changed now. She's gonna be a different character.
Yeah.
Like, she's not, that specter's coming. She didn't mean to.
Yeah.
And I feel like they hinted at it earlier in the show when she first meets him. And she stares at him, and she's, like, having all these thoughts, like, oh, you're taking Dina away from me, you're a popular jerk, jock boy, bro, whatever. And his nose starts to bleed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, immediately there's a tension of, like, he's gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
One way or another, he's gonna get hurt by the end of the show. And oh boy, does he. He gets real hurt.
Yes.
And she was so close to getting the kiss. Anyway.
She was. My second favorite scene... That's a lot of scenes.
I mean, if you can get to 2, I think that's probably good enough.
I think my second favorite scene was when she comes to talk to Stanley at the bowling alley, and he's just saying how, like, every superhero has, like, their mentor. We have to just find your mentor to, like, help you out with these powers and control it. But until then, I can help you. Wait a minute. I'm your mentor. And she's like, no. Stanley, no. You're not going to be, like, my master mentor, like, superhero.
You're my sidekick.
Yeah. And I think that's really funny because the whole night, he's just trying so hard to help her, and they're hanging out in like this closed bowling alley that he works at, and he's brought stacks and stacks of comic books, and he's like, oh, were you bit by a radioactive spider? Did your parents die? And all this stuff, and well, one of them did, but he's just asking her, like, did this happen to you? Did this happen to you? Different origin stories of different characters, and I don't know. It was really fun to me. It was a fun scene. It wasn't sad or anything until he starts yelling at her. But that's only to figure out when and how her powers come about. And once she does become anxious and throws a bowling ball at his head, she gets really angry because she's like, I could have killed you. But he's like, well, now we know your powers work, though, when you're angry.
Yeah, when you're upset and anxious and angry. And he said some gnarly stuff.
Oh, yeah, he was very rude.
But, he knew he was being rude. It was, she mentioned, I usually feel very bad. He's like, okay, so let's talk about your dad. Let's talk about how your mom sucks. Let's talk about...
Yeah. Let's talk about how you're not good enough, how you're in love with Dina, but she's never going to love you back.
All this stuff. And, it worked. He did a good job. A very unfortunately good job. I already mentioned that my number one scene is the very end, just because it excites me for the future. But another favorite scene that I have, would probably be the interaction in the basement with her and her mother. Because, admittedly, her mom's not great.
No. There's
a lot of negativity between them, and, you can sort of understand why her mother is the way she is and see where it's coming from. But obviously this is centered around Sydney, and we can feel that the mother isn't handling things as well as Sydney needs her to. It's unfortunate, that's a thing that has to happen, but it's where it is. And in the basement, their interaction where Sydney realizes that her dad had the same sort of problems that she did, partially with the powers, but also with just depression in general. And the fact that knowing her dad had depression sort of gave her, a sense of connection to him and hope, weirdly enough. That was interesting. That was really cool. I like that.
A weird sense of closure.
Yeah, I'm like him. We're closer together, even though he's gone. It was really pretty. It was a really cute scene. Very sad. Yeah.
She even mentioned that, you at one point your father got really depressed and paranoid and thought somebody was following him around. This dark figure was following him, and she was like, "No, I'm a little sad and depressed, and some guy's following me around."
So yeah, there's all those connections, and just seeing her, I don't know, sort of just this light turn on in her mind, oh, okay, that was cool. Yeah. I wasn't expecting that sort of understanding to click in her, because she is such a young, uncertain character. I thought it would possibly lead her towards a more negative direction, but it didn't, and that was cool. I was very much enjoying that scene.
My last favorite scene is really simple. It's just a scene where Liam, her little brother, cooks dinner.
Oh, yeah.
Because her and her mom had been arguing, and she's like, you gotta feed Liam, I have to go to work. And she's like, well, it's not fair that I have to take care of him all the time. He's not my kid. He's my little brother, but you're making me act like an adult, and I'm only, 16. And he's like, oh, stop arguing. I can make dinner myself. It's fine. And he's 10 or 12 or something. And he makes dinner for himself and Sydney, and they sit down to eat. And he's just like, I don't know what's in it. I grabbed a bunch of stuff and dumped it in. And I don't know. It was just very sweet. Sydney eats it, and she's like, oh, it's actually pretty good. And I don't know. It's just very sweet, and it's wholesome, and it's a nice little break for Sydney to be happy.
Very, very pretty. Very cute. My last scene has no loftier meanings or anything like that. I just thought it was fun. Do you recall the scene in which where Stanley's getting ready to go to the party?
Yes.
where he's trying on all these different outfits that I swear to God are from the 60s or something.
It's a small town. You're not going to have, like, a modern store there. It's all going to be, like, secondhand.
He wore a powder blue suit.
Yeah, what about it?
With frills.
Yeah, what about it? He looked good.
No, it was lovely.
He looked fly.
Yeah, that would describe him, I suppose, from the era he was dressing in. But it was just a really funny scene. It was very cute. Just like he was so excited to go to this party and see Sydney there and all this stuff, and it was very.
Also, he didn't wear ruffles. He wore a band shirt.
But he tried on ruffles.
He tried on ruffles.
It was all very cute. Like I had a fun time just seeing him. Like, no, let's try this one. Let's try this one. It was very fun. There was so much bad shit that happened to everyone that when they have moments of like excitement for themselves and for what's coming up, it excited me too. I was like, oh yeah, find that perfect shirt, feel that confidence, get out there, and don't make her fall in love with you because she's not going to, because she's super gay. But have your best night. Try your darndest to have fun. So it was something, you know. It was just a fun scene. Also, bonus, every time he shows up with his car and tries to roll down the window,
takes forever.
It takes like a minute. So good.
That's really good. Stanley is probably my favorite character out of all of them.
Yeah, I mean, he's so good. I think that wraps it up for me.
Yeah, I think it wraps up for me too.
So, just to wrap up things, from me, you already heard, great movie, go watch it, great show. Go watch it, 10 out of 10. I'm assuming you agree?
Yeah, 10 out of 10.
Wonderful. So now that things are wrapped up, just a little more of a personal, hey, how's it going sort of part here. I 100% have been dealing with depression for many years now, and I just wanted to mention that sometimes it isn't as obvious as you'd think. For most of my life, I never really considered it, never really thought about it. I'm a very upbeat, happy person. Like, I'm a very optimistic, positive person. But when something negative happens in my life, even if it's pretty small, it impacts me greatly, and it's difficult to handle, difficult to deal with, difficult to sort of accept that it's a thing that's happening. And I learned after some bad things happened, which in hindsight weren't even that bad, they just hurt me because of the way that I handle my depression, the way that depression affects me, that sometimes that can be it. That can be everything that depression is to you, is an inability to sort of process these bad events. And it can be equally as painful and dangerous as that constant sort of blanket of depression. So even if you feel like maybe this isn't the thing that you feel, if there's points in your life where it really is overwhelming, talk to someone, especially professionals. Share your feelings and the way you interact with yourself and how you feel. And you might find out that maybe you need some help in certain aspects, and it's okay to need that. So yeah, I didn't think I had it. Keep that in mind, and don't just think that I'm usually pretty happy, so I can't have depression. It can affect anyone.
Yes, and talking about it, even if you're a little bit sad, any little thing that you might feel sad about or angry or frustrated or overwhelmed by, talking to someone, even though it seems scary, can really strengthen a relationship. And it can make you feel better inside. And if you do know somebody, or you yourself think that you might have depression, talk to someone professional, or even just a friend. We will leave some links for some hotlines down below, and we can also do that on the podcast, I'm pretty sure.
Yep. It'll be in there somewhere.
And we can even leave like a website. I know there's a few pretty good like therapy websites that you can use just at home without having to go outside. You can just talk to someone on your phone or on your computer, and it's really helpful.
Yeah, I'll try to find some for just general purpose suicide or depression awareness or emergency help. Maybe some for specifically LGBT community people, seeing as this is very much specific to this show. And just any other little things that I think might lead them to a better understanding of themselves and anything that can help someone who's in need. We'll try and find those and put them in for everyone.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up.
That wraps it up.
Wash your hands. Bye.
We love you.